I'd be down for that.
Yeah.
Hey guys, welcome to the Big Blue United podcast. My name is TJ. I'm here with Colin, and we got the man himself, the Big Derg, Nick with us tonight. Almost dropped your last name and doxed you.
Who is the Derg? The big bad Derg.
Super unique last name that no one else has in all this country. So
that we've definitely said at least 3 times on the other previous
you just have one of those names. It's like you got to say the first and last name together. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Mindy used to do that. Like she would never refer to me as just Nick. It was always Nick Madison. You know, it was like the same.
Oh no! He doxed himself.
We'll beep it. Or cut it.
Cut that.
We'll get that good editing skills, you know. What's up, guys? I know we did our fantasy draft last night. We're all in a league together. That was nice to see you 2 days in a row, Nick. It's been a while.
Yeah, I like to see friends, you know, getting together and talking about fun and laughing. So, you know, I think I hit my quota for the next couple months. So, you know, maybe we'll get together around the holidays.
Oh yeah, so no jokes tonight. Let's keep it real dry.
That's it, please.
Yeah.
we expended it. That's all we got.
I got nothing left in me. Guys, as usual, follow Big Blue United on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can follow us on Twitter at BBU Podboys with the Z. Follow our gracious podcast network at Pigskin Podnet on Twitter. Download the DraftKings app. Sign up with promo code TPPN. Our sponsor this week is brought to you by Booksio, which is a company put together by our founder, Ian. Booksio is basically a marketplace where you can purchase books, ebooks, stuff like that. And every purchase you make, 10% will get donated to a charity. It's booksio.com. So if you like to read and, buy your books there, might as well donate to charity while you're doing it. It's definitely a cool company, definitely a good concept. Check it out, guys. Booksio.com, booksio.com. Cool. I know we missed last week, but we're not really going to talk about the Jets game because that kind of just falls into kind of the final 53, which I think we'll spend the most time on. But the first thing I do want to bring up is news from today that Mike Kafka will be calling the plays and not Brian Daboll, which is not something that I sort of expected. I know we saw him call plays in the preseason, but when the regular season was coming up, I was sort of expecting Daboll to jump in there and take over that role. I mean, what do you guys think the decision-making process was behind this? We'll start with you, Nick.
So I would like to think as a first-time head coach, you know, he really wants to let his guys shine, empower them to show that they're capable. I mean, he knows he can always rely on that later if they get into a jam or if they start slow. He can always take it back. It's just, I think it's one of those things where he trusts them and he knows they've worked well, and so I think they'll be successful. But I do really think it's purely just him wanting to put his guy out there and let him be successful, or maybe just a scapegoat if they start slow and somebody that he can get later.
I think it's possible, too, that he might be wanting to give himself an opportunity to be the head coach, too, and not worry about that aspect of the game, which is what he's been focusing on so much in the last all of his NFL career, basically. So I think he's making the step to mature his coaching acumen now, too, and not be stuck in a situation where he, is calling bad timeouts or challenging things he shouldn't, stuff like that. Yeah, I agree as well. I mean, he's got to have his trust in his guys too, and he's kind of maybe it's looking at it like a tryout kind of situation. I mean, preseason was so short. That was a sample size, but this is where it hits the fan. So let's see if Kafka can pull it off.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think especially as a first-time head coach, you need to be available for the whole team, not have your focus solely on half the team, especially a team that desperately needs help kind of everywhere. I don't know if they're going to be able to take it back from Kafka. It's kind of a weird situation when you run into kind of giving someone sort of authority and then rescinding on that. They usually doesn't end up well, just in terms of the culture and sort of like the mindset of going in. You might ruffle a couple feathers doing that. But on the same token, I think that this is the right move. I think Daboll should be paying attention to what's going on fully. And I, liked what I saw in the preseason. Maybe it's not the most dynamic offense in the NFL, probably far from it, but definitely more interesting to watch than what we've seen in a long time. So I think if, they're probably not showing any other cards at all really at this point. So from what we have seen, I like it. And I think that once the playbook opens up, I think we're going to see, a cool offense from this team, at least cooler than, we have in the past few years, which is probably the easiest thing to do. We could probably call better plays than Kitchens and Garrett were doing. Who knows?
Yeah. Anyway, PA fullback flat would probably just do it
Every
for all you
time.
Madden fans out there.
Engage
Cross.
8. Well, Wink's going to run Engage 8 every play, so you might as well just do
Seriously.
the other Madden play on the other side. Play extra fullback flat. Wait, I don't even know. Do you think any of those like always working plays in Madden when we were playing it a lot in college still work? Just is trips cross still there?
I would
I
have
got
to.
outlawed in 2014. They just
Because Y is always open, no matter what happens.
Yeah.
Talking about the roster, guys. I mean, I think the easiest place to start and kind of one of the more contentious things was Blake Martinez getting cut, which is somewhat of a weird one to me, especially coming right after, basically they knocked the roster down to 53 people. I've heard a lot of stuff, that he was upset he wasn't captain. He didn't fit in Wink's defense. Either way, at the end of the day, I'm confused about this decision. I'm curious to hear what you guys think, but the Giants, it's not about cap savings. The Giants are basically getting $200,000 back and eating $7.5 million in dead cap. Where did this decision come from, Colin?
I think if you saw how, well, I guess it's a number of ways of looking at it. Throughout the summer, you didn't really see a lot of the team do a lot of how am I putting this? It's like there was no attention on him when in the past he was a big proponent of the leadership of the team. He was all over the media. He was always on videos, interviews and stuff like that. And in retrospect, he was nowhere to be found. Yes, he was coming back from a fairly big ACL injury, which is a big deal in itself. And he's getting up there. I can't remember exactly how old he is, but he's
only 28. Yeah. I mean,
okay. Well, I mean, maybe they're looking at the long term where, yes, he's been very productive the last couple of years, and he was a tackling machine from, 2017 to 21. I think he was just like one of the leaders in the league. But they might see this injury as a decline. And, yeah, I think it's possible it's not a scheme fit. I think Wink kind of likes linebackers with at least a little bit of a covering capability, which he basically has none of. And this is a modern defense. So the reason that he wasn't cut earlier, in my opinion, is that it was just so thin. There were so many injuries they couldn't do it. They wouldn't have had camp bodies at that point. So I think they saw enough from the young guys. Unfortunately, Beavers goes down, but he'll be a futures guy. I think Micah McFadden may have shown enough to be a plug and play with Crowder. And we may see not a lot of dual middle linebacker formations on defense. I mean, you'll see it in the base, but we might have one of those crazy, 7 defensive backs out there, hence all of the roster moves that we've been making recently of loading up on that front. So I think to people inside the organization and the staff, the writing was probably on the wall, and it is a big surprise to us now. But I was talking to my dad about it. We at first thought we should have been upset hearing the news, and we thought about it for a second. It's like, well, I don't really care that much, and I don't know if that's a sign of the times, how things have gone up until this point with not being positive about much. But I don't think he moves the needle enough to say we're going to win 3 more games as opposed to losing. I don't know how I feel.
So, I mean, the conventional sort of guess would be what you said, Colin, right? It's that he's not a scheme fit, or they didn't see that he was kind of just what they wanted in their future. I'm going to try to take a different view of it, right? So the one thing that sticks out to me is the guy he's good at what he does, right? When he's healthy, he's an absolute tackling machine. Probably was going to be a step slow. They usually say these injuries take 2 years to come back. I wonder if they just had a conversation with him and they just said, hey, listen, this is probably a rebuilding year, over under wins it's set as 7. So, if you got 9 wins, you'd consider that a huge success. Maybe they shock everybody, get 10 wins and you're competing for a wild card, but that's probably the ceiling. So maybe they just had a conversation and said, hey, listen, we know that you're good at what you do and you're in the good years, right? You've got another probably 4 or 5 years of being really great at what you do. We're just going to let you go and you go find a contender somewhere, because we don't want you to, have 160 tackles on a team that has, a ceiling of 8-9 wins. Again,
pure honesty, right?
Yeah,
transparency with him.
Yep. And just because he was great before he got hurt. And, again, you don't want to give up guys like that, but you also kind of, you know what you have, right? These guys have been around, they've kind of assessed things and they're realistic, right? I mean, to the media, they'll tell you they're going to win, they're going to go 17-0. But the reality is they look at these guys, they know what they've got. They've got some good emerging young talent. They've got a uncertainty at the quarterback position. They've got uncertainty at the running back position. They've got some talent at wide receiver. But again, there's just a lot of kind of like building blocks that you wouldn't consider all blue chip, but you consider them, whatever the beneath that white chip guys are. And you hope that they turn into blue chip, and you kind of roll the dice and say, we're going to let some of these young guys develop. Just the thought.
I mean, I agree with that. I agree with everything you guys said, basically. I just thought the timing of it was particularly interesting. And I think there's something that we don't know about. Maybe nobody else knows about it. More of a private conversation between Blake and, the coaching staff and Shane and his crew.
Well, that was weird about that personal day that he took the day before he was released, where he wasn't at practice like that.
Yeah, exactly. We're never really going to know like what the real reason is. I mean, at the end of the day, though, you have to think that the team is not better and there is no cap savings. So to not have him on the team after, someone who restructured their contract at the beginning of the season to stay with the team to now not be on it, it's perplexing. But I guess at the end of the day, it just wasn't going to work out. Whatever was going on wasn't going to work out for this team. And, Colin, I think you made the best point is that, and Nick too, is that this team has a low ceiling. I think 9 wins is an aggressive statement. And you're right, that would be best case scenario. I think at this point, you're going into kind of a rebuilding situation. Let the young guys play. Let McFadden play. I think Carter Coughlin has ability to rush from the inside too. Yeah. And at the end of the day, Blake is not a 3-down linebacker in a Wink Martindale system. He needs more off-ball guys than, people who are going to stuff the run. And, Blake did have some pass rushing ability. I don't want to take that away from him, but maybe not to the degree that Wink was looking for out of that position in his scheme. But either way, I'm confused. I hope we get more information at some point because I'm not sure what the situation here is. I don't think anybody really knows. But I know you mentioned wide receiver. I think that's another place to go just because that was another group that I think we saw a lot of talent in the preseason. I think we saw a lot of guys that were younger. I know last time we had the pod, we were, kind of laughing how we haven't seen Kenny Golladay do anything. And then we're seeing Alex Bachman, lead the preseason in receptions. He didn't make the team, unfortunately. Darius Slayton's another guy to touch on here. I mean, what do you guys feel about this wide receiver group and who ended up on the team?
I'm
sort of wants to start.
Yeah, I'm sad about Bachman not sticking around just because of how much production he showed. Yes, it was against a lot of seconds and thirds, but you could tell that he developed in the last bunch of years that he was on the practice squad. He actually kept getting better and better every year. And yeah, David Sills was in his way, and David Sills is bigger and probably a little faster, and he's got a rapport with Jones, so that's probably what won him the job.
I think the last thing you said is the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean, they're like best friends. Every time you hear something in the off season, it's the two of them working together. So maybe that will pay dividends. I mean, that's cool. I'm into that. However, we got injuries like we're breathing air. So maybe it was another transparency kind of situation where we're like, listen, you guys, like to Bachman, you put on a show this preseason. It's clear. I don't know if he got picked up by anyone else yet. I know he was looking around.
Not that I'm aware of.
He'll probably. He's going to go to the Patriots. We've made jokes about it already. How the Wes Welkers and the Julian Edelmans of the world. He'll be right there, fit right in with Bill.
Still a free agent.
Is he? Well, he might end up coming back. Who knows? It might be one of those things where no one picks him up and. Not that he comes crawling back, but we would take him. And, I don't know if there's any more room in the practice squad right now, but
there's one spot left.
Oh yeah. We didn't fill it. Well, that's good for a little leeway. Who knows? But yeah, I don't know. Tony is an enigma. I'd love to see him actually take that step this year, but the guy has had all the undisclosed injuries for his whole career so far. So they say
you think he's milking it.
I don't know, Nick. What do you think about that? Because he's an enigma.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys where it's just like he just seems like he's going to be electric, right? And anytime he gets the ball, even when he gets a 4-yard gain, he's just all over, and he's quick, and he's making the right cuts and stuff, and he's just like he's what you want. He's Tyreek Hill, right? Like when he's healthy, right? I'm not saying he's at all, the production. I'm not saying that has anything to hang his hat on that, but like that's the mold of what you want, right? A guy that gets the ball in space and he's just a blur. But as you said, I mean, if you can't stay on the field, I'd rather have a guy who's a little less athletic and 10 times more durable, because that's the stuff that matters. Guys that go in and play 16, 17 games, that's all that matters. I mean, it's the same thing with Saquon, not to jump to running back, but when he's on the field, he's absolutely fantastic. I mean, he could play probably, 6 positions on the field. But the reality is, if you don't play the games, it's meaningless. I mean, so, circling back, I mean, Tony, I'm assuming that they're going to find a way to get the ball to him, but in positions maybe where he won't be, getting tackled heavy and things like that. Like, they'll put him in space and, not run him up the middle, or do some of these sort of like odd jet sweeps where he's up by defensive tackles. I assume there's got to be some sort of like a strategic way to get him just in open space. All that said, you just can't treat him with kid gloves, right? Eventually, you just got to say, if you're the guy and we're going to invest in you and build you as a cornerstone of our offense, you got to get the ball 14 times a game, and you have to be able to take the punishment of being in the NFL. I mean, that's just the cold reality. It's
funny you said that, because I don't know if you guys noticed in the preseason, but Wan'Dale Robinson seemed to get blasted at least 3 times a game, and he's got to start figuring out how to not get hit like that, which was, he's electric too, but the preseason game that my dad and I went to, the Bengals, he just got rocked on like the 3rd play of the game.
He's very worried about what he's going to do after he catches the ball instead of catching the ball. And then I think he puts himself into a headspace where he's just getting obliterated because he's not thinking like in the right terms. But like I said this last time we talked about Wan'Dale, he's a rookie. He looks like a rookie. Yeah. With Tony, to me, it's like, I doubt his commitment to football. And I know that is a common thing people say. And then there's a lot of, people say, oh, no, it's not like that. He gets bad rap. But I mean, when I look at what Tony, and this is a really kind of weird parallel to make, sort of, but I think about like when Michael Strahan was in his last year, or Tom Brady now. Those guys have like earned their keep and decided they really didn't want to play and didn't want to practice to do training camp. That's fine. But if you're in your 2nd year and you're sort of milking this stuff to stay out of practice, I mean, it's a little bit concerning. You have to like be concerned. Like, is he going to play football, or is he just going to collect his paycheck and to be off the team and wash out of the league and go be a rapper? Like, I'm not sure exactly where his head is at. I know his head is cold. I can tell you that.
and this is the other thing about a guy like Tony. I mean, he's not part of this regime, right? They inherited him, much like Daniel Jones. So a lot of these guys who are not rookies or even free agents, this is their year to prove whether they're going to be part of this regime, right? I mean, so if he goes out and he has another year like he did, whether it's full of injuries or it's lack of production or commitment or whatever, whatever one you want to circle, he won't be here long. I mean, by getting rid of Blake Martinez shows you that despite your, what you are, if you're not a fit in terms of what they want to do, whether, again, commitment, productivity, durability, whatever the case may be, you'll be gone. I mean, Daboll's got 4 years before he's going to be on the hook again, and people are going to start to be clamoring for new. So he doesn't want to waste time with guys that aren't going to be there. You know what I mean?
The thing about Tony is, though, like, I can totally see him playing a couple games and having that Cowboys game last year where he has 200 yards and a touchdown, and he does that once or twice, and you're just like, man, this guy is great, but then isn't on the field for more than half the game. So it's a hard decision to make when you have a guy like that in a rookie deal who's probably, he's pretty cheap and can do that for you occasionally. But at what point do you, think to yourself, we need a guy who's going to be, playing every game, getting reps and getting better, instead of just having a guy who's not on the field and producing for you here and there? It doesn't seem pragmatic to me. And especially in a rebuilding team. Like, Tony would be great on like the Chiefs or something.
Yeah.
Like a team that's already contending,
He didn't score a touchdown last year, if I remember correctly.
I'm
not correcting you. I'm just thinking about it. That insane game he had, like,
Daniel Jones only had 11 touchdowns, so nobody scored any touchdowns.
Yeah, and who scored them? I don't even remember who scored them at that point.
It was all like, Chris Miriak and whoever else.
Yeah.
Evan Ingram dropped one in the end zone, I think.
Oh, I can't wait to see him absolutely suck in Jacksonville. It's going to be great.
The scary part about last thing about Tony. What scares me about Tony, and it'll haunt my dreams, is when we let him go and he ends up on that team, right? The Chiefs, the Saints, the wherever, and he's just electric. And at that point, you just tip your hat and you say, all right, it wasn't meant to be for us, but there's something there. I mean, he definitely feels like he's a superstar, but like you said, I doubt his commitment a little bit. And, maybe it's just he needs the right coach or the right leader to say like, hey, I need you to be here and we don't need you to be, rapping or doing whatever extracurricular nonsense he wants to do. But I get terrified that that's what's going to happen. And he goes somewhere and it's, it's like when Randy Moss left the Raiders and he went to New England and he was the best wide receiver for 3 years. Like that, not on that level, but that same sort of parallel.
What we see from the coaching staff, you think this coaching staff is that coaching staff. So I don't know. Maybe it's just, not thinking that you're not going to win games because the team is not that good. And maybe that takes away from a guy who's, full focus isn't really football.
Yeah.
I think we should talk about Slayton too. Because there was a weird one for me to make the team, especially the Giants right now are $5 million over the cap. They need to get down under the cap by tomorrow, Tuesday. So Slayton's $2.5 million. He's a guy who's, getting paid $2.5 million to be your fifth, sixth wide receiver maybe. And then you had, cutting Bachman, who you could have paid, veteran minimum, who was probably producing better in those situations. I don't know. I mean, I've seen enough of Slayton to know what he is. And it's a guy who has a lot of athletic ability that doesn't really translate to a receiver skill set in the NFL because he can't catch well. And when he does get those breaks and those moments, they just don't seem to be capitalizing on them.
Well, apparently, I mean, who knows what the truth is to this, but apparently there were some teams that were calling. So maybe here's a theory that they still have a possibility of a trade of some sort on the table. They're waiting for it to come through, depending on how, rosters shake out in the first 2 weeks of the season with these other teams. And maybe Bachman, they're still hoping as Bachman's just floating around, they trade Slayton, have the spot for another wide receiver, get him back, and maybe trade for a pick or a player for a position that we need, something better in. I mean, the one thing that was, this must be the transparency episode, but it sure as hell seemed that Shane was very forthright saying that, and we saw it with all the waiver pickups, but business is booming right now. We're making moves. We're getting people. We're talking to people. We're willing to do the business. So I feel like we might be surprised by the moves that are happening even in season, not just now. Because this is he's probably thinking rebuild now because who cares if we win or lose? If we win, that's golden. If we don't, well, keep looking for the years down the line.
Before you go, Nick, I should mention that in the last press conference I watched with Shane and Dable, Shane said that Darius Slayton will be a Giant week 1. So I don't know. Most of the stuff these guys say seem as genuine. So to me, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the receiver class in general, right? There's a lot of upside with some of these guys, right? Like, Wan'Dale's going to need some time he's a rookie. Like you said, he's going to do rookie things for a while. Rarely do receivers and corners and these edge guys do something super amazing in the first year. Absolutely. There's exceptions and things like that. But, you expect the guys that are the veterans to produce, right? Or what do you expect for Sterling Shepard and Galladay, right? For the season, right? I mean, if I set their over under total touchdowns between the two of them at 5.5, would you feel comfortable taking the over on that? I mean, that's a super low number, but that tells you all you need to know about them as players, both whether it's injury concerns or productivity.
I don't expect Shepard to play much. And when he does, I feel like, like I said 100 times, I like the rapport between him and Jones. I think Shepard is at the point in his career where he's, hit that place where he's going to catch a ball and fall down. I don't necessarily think he's going to be electric with the ball in his hands anymore. I think that he can get open on third down on certain routes, and I think that's helpful to Daniel Jones. So I like Shepard still being on the team. I've always liked Shepard. He's like a real giant, a guy, longest tenured player on the team. I'm glad he restructured. I'm glad he's back. I don't expect a hell of a lot from him. That being said, you have Wan'Dale, Tony. Those are the guys I'm looking to really, carry this offense over the air. Galladay, I don't know, man. I don't think he gives a shit. I just think he's going to maybe have 500 yards and 2 TDs this year, and then he'll be gone next year. By the way, $22 million cap hit, highest in the NFL.
Insane.
So if you had to guess right now, who leads the Giants in receiving by the end of this year? Who would you say?
I mean,
that's hard, man.
I think it's going to be spread out. It's going to be real spread out, and the stats aren't going to look great. But if If Jones is finding the second and third reads and getting people open and getting the first downs, I don't care if there's one guy that has more stats over the
You might have three guys with like 700 yards. I just don't think the Giants have anyone that's going to hit 1,000 yards. I think Tony has the capability to be that player, but I just don't think he's going to be on the field enough to amass those stats.
As you were talking about Shepard, I was thinking, what if, and I would like to see this, especially with his declining health and stuff like that, if he's able to retain any of his speed that he had in the past, but maybe not be as electric as he has been for obvious reasons, I'd like him to turn into like our new age, our Steve Smith. Like get that first down on a big third down, fall right down where you need to and just don't do much more. Just be that outlet. You know, Jones is running for his life and all of a sudden he's open because he ran an incredible route and he like backtracked the way he needs to. And he just ends up being that guy and stay healthy. That would be cool.
Staying healthy, I think, is, the number one thing for this position group, because we've seen the decimation of the wide receivers over the last few years. It's been a struggle. I think a lot of times when you're a Giants fan, especially the last few years, you look on paper about who, your skill position players are. And then, they've only played half a quarter together in the last 3 or 4 years. So the injuries are huge. And I think if everybody stays healthy, obviously, I mean, it's a silly thing to say. If everyone stays healthy, the circumstances are a lot different. I think the ceiling is higher. I think that Jones has a better year. I mean, it really comes down to that offensive line, really, too, which I think is, we should move on to there. Obviously, a lot of injuries in this group as well. You have Shane Lemieux out, temporary IR, let's say 8 weeks. McKeithen's out for the year, was the 5th round pick this year. Brendison's lost some time. Azudu has lost some time. It's going to be better than it was last year, but I think as the year goes on and we get, maybe Nick Gates back, we get Lemieux back, maybe Matt Pert turns a corner and is healthy and experiences some time with this, what seems to be a very improved coaching staff, just from the kind of plug and play we've seen along the line and how they've improved in the preseason. What are you guys' feelings on the line?
This is year one of the rebuild, right? I mean, they'll be better. They'll be a little bit more kind of aggressive and able to maybe do a little bit more. But I still think we're probably a year or two away from saying we've got our 5 guys or we've got our 4 guys and a journeyman veteran that we'll live with. But I just like the young guys. I like grabbing those guys when at the top of the draft. Again, if we're drafting in the top 15, 16 this year, you're not gonna have me mad if we go lineman again, right? Because it's just
not at all.
You build in the trenches, you win in the trenches, and that's Giants football. So I just want.
That's how they won 2 Super Bowls.
100%.
People maybe don't forget. People remember the helmet catch and the Manningham catch, but really it was the offensive line giving Eli time to throw those balls, and the defensive line just obliterating Tom Brady the whole game. That's why they won.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing about the line I did want to say is I'm super happy that Mbeteka landed on the practice squad. Because I think that, a guy who's played in 3 NFL games off the boat from Africa, plane, whatever you're supposed to say now. I'm glad he's still there. I'm looking forward to him, making some splashes a couple years down the road if possible.
Yeah, I think that was a gimme that he was not going to make the roster for the regular season, with the idea that they would be stashing him and maybe develop him for down the line. I mean, he's still young too. I don't remember exactly what his age is, but he's in his 20s and he's still learning the game. I mean, they were making jokes in the first game that he was in that he was just learning how to put his pads on before the game and getting him ready and all that kind of stuff. And frankly, when I watched him live, it was against mostly second and third stringers, but he wasn't getting absolutely blown up. It was cool. I think part of that, the OC Umenyiora NFL Africa thing.
I think that's why I'm happy he's still a Giant, because OC was the one that brought him here. So
yeah.
But can I, Nick, I think if you kind of look at, when you said the starting 5, if Gates and Lemieux were healthy, you sort of have 4 guys there. Plus your Glowinski's kind of he's older, he's 31.
Your journeyman,
he's got a couple year left, but really, if this team kind of gets, whatever these injuries are together, that's just been plaguing the team. I know it's less this year than it has been in the past, but it's really brutal, just those injuries, man, because the line could be a lot better. And I think that the coaching is better. just having a guy like Devery Henderson sort of starting for you, who has looked fine in the preseason, but he's not, an answer. He's not even like a guy you really want to be starting for you week 1, but it's a work in progress. It is. Line. What else, guys? I think the one thing I want to talk about too is just tight end and running back before we move on. And tight end could be quick because, wow, brutal. I know we all, have loved Bellinger and sort of, the story around that and kind of his athletic traits and stuff like that. But man, this team needs a veteran tight end who can catch so bad. There's nobody. They have 2 guys. And when we're so busy to kind of seeing those big tight end sets over the past few years, you'd have to think the Giants are just moving away from that in general, unless they bring somebody in. I mean, do you expect to see two tight ends in the field at all this year, Nick?
No, and it's such a non-Giant thing to not have a reliable tight end going into the season, right? I mean, obviously the Ingram years would be the exception, but we've just had quality tight end play, for the last whatever years, and it's bizarre, right? Unless they know something that we don't, right? And the way they're going to scheme the games or something like that. It's just a bizarre move to put all your chips in the Bellinger basket and say, that's the route we're going to go, because tight end's so important, because you're going to be the guy that's going to help maybe an inexperienced tackle with a chip, or you're going to be, the extra blocker and run schemes. It's such a vital position. And then when you have a quarterback who might be turnover prone or struggling to get the ball down the field, what's the first thing you usually look for is your safety blanket, which is your tight end. And I don't feel super comfortable saying that that's going to be the guys we have right now.
And surprisingly enough, I don't know if you saw when they first put out the 53, Chris Myrick was listed as a fullback and not a tight end.
I saw that, yeah.
Which is just like, all right, well, yeah, sure, you can be he'll be a move kind of guy. You'll see him playing tight end too, but maybe he'll be starting as a fullback position for plays that warrant it. Yeah, I mean, I expect them to pick up somebody during the season, if not sooner than later, and then maybe not even bother with those kind of formations for a while. I mean, this whole offense is going to look so drastically different than what we've seen, and it's going to be interesting. I mean, you see what the Bills have done over the last couple of years, and you'd be hard-pressed to say that there's not going to be a lot of similarities, at least attempting to try to do those kinds of offenses and schemes until they're able to develop a little more of their strategy. We've touched on it before. Speaking of running backs, you're going to see Saquon all over the place. We like to hate on the guy for mostly Dave Gettleman's doing, but I think for better or worse, the guy has clearly had a fire lit under him this offseason. He seems pissed off, which I think is a good thing.
I like that he cursed in the press conference the other day.
I think he's sick of the media's BS and the fans for that matter. And frankly, I don't blame him. I mean, he's put himself in the spot. Let's be real. He's been the injury prone guy, dancing behind the line, doing all the things that we don't want him to do, and a far reach from what he was his rookie season. So what he has to do is put up or shut up now. And unfortunately, he's on a team that may not be able to provide that fully for him. But if he's able to do something to let the league know that he's back, well, let's hope that he gets a nice big payday somewhere else and we can maybe capitalize on that somehow. But hey, we need him this year. And with the injuries at wide receiver, you're going to see him lined out there, lining up, going in motion and playing that type of role more than we've ever seen. So I think that's going to be very interesting. I'm looking forward to that, actually.
I think he's going to have a huge year if he stays healthy. I really do. I almost picked him in fantasy, but I wanted to exercise a little more caution. I think more of the storyline on the running backs is like that they decided to keep 4 on. I thought Corbin was better than Breda. We didn't really see Breda. Breda has more experience, so I see why I made the team. Corbin ran on the practice squad. Gary Brightwell's a guy that you're going to see on special teams, but he was, running the ball pretty well too. I don't know, just an interesting group there. But yeah, Saquon's going to have a really good year. I really think so. I don't need to talk too much about running back. It's a plug and play position at this point. We just happen to have, an overdrafted, really hyped running back on the team. So it's one of those things you have to touch on. But I fully expect Saquon to, have 1,500 yards from scrimmage this year and a couple touchdowns, maybe 8 to 10 touchdowns if he stays healthy.
If he stays healthy and has stats like that, I think you're going to see the higher of the ceiling in terms of the wins, right? I mean, this is a year where when you look at the schedule, again, not that we have to go game by game or anything like that, but it's a soft schedule. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there is that sort of middle end there where you're playing Jacksonville, Seattle, Houston, Detroit. I mean, that is a soft stretch there, and some of these division games can be a coin flip, right? Dallas is obviously probably the team to beat in the division.
It's our year.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But this is a year where if things fell their way, right, and they were able to be kind of more efficient on offense and make some stops on defense and, win the coin flip games. I mean, and Saquon stays healthy. And again, we kind of know what Daniel Jones is at this point. So I'm not going to say he's going to go out and throw for 4,500 yards and have 43 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. I mean, he's a turnover prone guy that's super athletic. And, that's what we have to kind of work around and get him the ball around the edges and rolling him out and really kind of find ways to make him mobile, because he's not your true pocket guy. In a kind of roundabout way, I'm saying if Saquon stays healthy and you can find a way to make the most out of Daniel Jones and his limitations with the schedule, that's again, you can talk me into the 9-win, 10-win situation, but again, a lot of ifs. I feel I said if 36 times as I went through that.
In interest of time, let's move on to the defense, and let's just kind of do front seven and the back end. I know we touched on Blake already, but I think we should, talk about the edge and Quincy Roche, especially. Yeah. The fact that he didn't make the team, I know he's back in the practice squad. That doesn't mean really much because anyone could poach him anytime you want. What I'm confused about is kind of how Zimenez made this team when Roach didn't. And what I've been reading was that Roach was just outplaying him kind of the whole thing. I'm just wondering if Roach just doesn't practice well. Just weren't seeing these things from him. I don't know how you keep Zimenez or Tomon Fox over Roach. It's just a perplexing situation to me. Kind of everybody else that made the roster on the front seven makes sense to me. I don't know I do like that Tomon Fox made the team because I do like, rooting for the underdog. And I think that, he could become a fan favorite, like with his family rooting in the stands. That video was kind of viral and stuff like that. So that's always fun to have kind of those guys in your team. Just to me, like Kayvon and Azeez are going to get hurt. We've seen it. It's happened plenty of times and right now. So not having Roche sort of there, especially with like Ellerson Smith had some question marks too about his injury history. I'm just worried about a unit that I thought was sort of going to be really improved this year. But now I'm wondering if the depth kind of is hurting in that spot. What do you guys feel about the front seven?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I don't expect to have any more than maybe 5 games the entire season where both bookends are playing at the same time in Azeez and Kayvon, just for whatever reason. Yeah, it's nice that it seems that some of the depth behind has stepped up in the preseason and kind of done some interesting things. I think you're going to see a lot of them. So it's going to be cool to see how Wink figures out a way to plug them and play them. But yeah, I keep like trying to find a positive with both sides of the offense and defense, and the injuries are just absolutely killing it for me. I don't know. Tomon Fox was cool to watch. I mean, my favorite guy in the preseason was Austin Colitro because of the Danbury, Connecticut connection there. So
he'll be playing too with Blake on for sure.
I think he will. I think he'll probably get spot plays with McFadden. I can't imagine that McFadden's like the guy who's going to be there next to Crowder.
I think they're just going to have one linebacker most of the time.
Yeah.
And it's going to be Tate Crowder. Yeah. Which is, when was the last time a Mr. Irrelevant started at a position 2 years in a row?
I keep forgetting that. That's insane.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I've got pretty low expectations for the defense. I injuries and Dable's traditionally been an offensive guy, so I know that he's hoping that Wink will be the guy that figures out the defense. I don't know. I just something doesn't feel right about this group, right? I mean, you've got a lot your linchpins and your guys that you're going to be leaning on are guys that can't stay truly healthy, and I'm saying it, I'm realizing this is the same problem with the offense. But
Yeah.
I just get nervous. You know what I mean? It's gonna be one of those things where we're digging into the practice squad come week 3 because our guys can't stay healthy. Looking over, and Thibodeau's got his Giants sweatshirt on, and he's not playing in week 4. I really, really want to believe that these guys are going to step out and they're going to be able to make some plays, and we're going to be able to, harken back to the days of OC and Tuck and Strahan and our true, once in a generation pass rushers. But I just don't see it when I look at these names and I look at these guys. I just don't see nothing inspires me that this is going to be a team that's going to be able to go out and win games when the offense can only put up 20 points, win games by holding teams to 13 points. It just, not to be completely Debbie Downer, I just don't see it with this group. And, there's guys I like individually, but as a unit, as a whole, I'm not buying it.
Yeah. And I think what we're expecting, or what Wink Martindale is trying to do, is to really get that group up to a point where they are consistently getting pressure every play, because right now I think the bigger issue is the secondary than the front seven. I think, as much as the injuries are going to be a problem, if people do stay healthy, then the pass rush, the pass rush can't be worse than it was last year or the year before. So you have better players. You hope something happens. That being said, the secondary is in the opposite position, where it's worse than it was. You've lost Logan Ryan, Will Peppers, and James Bradbury. Whatever you want to say about those guys, they were all proven veterans who had certain skill sets that, could create success in certain schemes and defenses. Right now, you're looking at Adoree Jackson, who is, a number 2 corner, and then Aaron Robinson, who just looks like lost out there all preseason. The first thing I have written in my notes is that the Giants are F tier, basically. We saw them pick up Pinnock, Nick McLeod, Justin Lane, Nick McLeod, cornerback from the Bills, so he's probably familiar a bit with Dable and Shane. Pinnock from the Jets, who, people say is starter material. Justin Lane, I don't know so much about. I just think it's very indicative of where the position group is at when you're doing your cuts to 53 and you're bringing in 3 veterans in the same position group out of 4 veterans you brought in at all. So clearly the Giants realize that this is a liability. How do you guys feel? The defense, Nick, I think you summed it up that it's a little rough, but Colin, what are you feeling about, the defensive backs here?
I feel the same way. It's going to be, you saw the struggles of Robinson on the other side of Adoree Jackson. I think you're going to continue to see it. He plays hard. I don't think he's very good. Oddly enough, he had a better year last year than he's looked in this preseason. So I don't know if you can take that big of a step back, but I don't know. We'll see. I think it's going to be a revolving door. Thankfully, our safety position on both sides is fairly solidified between Julian Love and McKinney.
McKinney's going to have a hell of a year, man, for this to work out.
Hey, not for nothing, too. Julian Love getting the captain's badge. That's pretty cool. I think it's very telling.
They made up like a new thing. He's like defense special teams captain or something.
Oh, I didn't see that. That's
it's like
That's kind of cool. I dig that. And he did mention that he's never been a captain at any level of his playing career, which is, it sounds negative, but it's also very positive because he's like, I've never had it, and I come to the greatest organization in football and became a captain, and just like, well said. I'm sure John is very happy that you said that to the family, but I think I'm going to lean into the positive with the safeties, especially the fact that they're going to be controlling a lot of what's going on with the defense. And I think because they have that leadership locked in, they feel a little bit more able to bring in so many new bodies at the cornerback position, that they feel like with the help that they're going to have back there to get their direction straight and their assignments and stuff, maybe they're able to tie some wins together to have at least a respectable season. I think anything that we end up doing on the positive end of things is going to be like house money at this point. It's about the build. You hate saying that, especially going into the season, especially the last 2 years of this podcast, where it seems like we were laughing like clowns every week. I'd like to not do that anymore. Hopefully we see enough improvement that even if we don't win a lot of games this year, we still feel hopeful for what we're going to see going forward. With that said, I'd like to end my aspect of this show tonight with the fact that it seems that half of Giants Twitter is adamant and convinced that Anthony Richardson is going to be our quarterback next year, the guy from Florida. So I don't know what you guys feel about that. He's a pretty fiery, interesting quarterback character in the college football world. I didn't get to see him play much over the weekend, but he had some interesting.
Can't throw.
I mean, he had some throws that were pretty sweet, actually. Nick, did you see any of his play?
I saw the jump pump fake that he had that was super athletic, which was pretty cool. But I mean, name me a good Florida quarterback in the NFL. Right?
I know, and as this Florida State guy, you're gonna lean into that even more. I understand that.
No, but so I want to say one more thing about the defense.
Yeah.
All the secondary ails and issues can be cured if we have a pass rush. You guys both know that. And I think Martindale's the guy to do it, right? To dial it up. He's the guy to scheme things, to work with maybe some spare parts, maybe with some blue chip guys, maybe with, this, that, or the other thing. So if you get pressure on a quarterback, it forgives a lot of sins you have on the outside, and guys don't have to cover for 14 seconds. They got to cover for 4 seconds, and it makes a world of difference for inexperienced corners and secondaries and guys like that when you can actually get to the quarterback in maybe a 4 rush set or with rushing with 4 or 5 guys. So I'm gonna be positive and look at it that way, that if we can find a way to get to the quarterback, that maybe some of these guys can come up to speed and get their big boy pants on here pretty quickly.
I agree. Let's hit this Titans game, guys. First game of the year. Giants opening up the season September 11th at Tennessee. First time they're playing an AFC team to open the season since they played the Broncos in 2001. Did they win or lose?
They
lost. Don't worry.
Oh, that game. I think for no good reason at all, we figure out a way to win this game, and then we don't win for like 5 weeks.
I want to share one more interesting stat. So Giants week 1 starters from 2021 who won't be in the starting lineup on Sunday: Shane Lemieux, Nick Gates, Will Hernandez, Nate Solder. That's 4 starting offensive linemen, which is a good thing in my mind. Yeah. Eli Penny, Austin Johnson, Lorenzo Carter, Blake Martinez, James Bradbury, Logan Ryan, Jabril Peppers. That's 3 of your starting 4s in your secondary as well. So the turnover is there. We are rebuilding. To see that all in one place is interesting, to me. I like it.
You know me. I'm a Vegas guy. I love to gamble. I look at that, and it's a 5.5 point line, which again, a neutral site usually gives you, or excuse me, the home team gets 3. So it's basically saying they're 2.5 points better on top of the traditional 3 points that you get. It's not a resounding kind of like dominant line, touchdown plus. Tells me it's going to be a close game. I mean, the Titans might struggle to score. I mean, Derrick Henry usually doesn't ramp up until the back half of the year. He still is amazing. He's still, when healthy, he's super tough. They did some interesting things by getting rid of AJ Brown. I think it's going to be a one possession game that comes down to the fourth quarter. I think it's going to be a tough game. You're going to find out whether we've got it, that fourth quarter grit to be able to come back and maybe drive down 4 going into the last 4 minutes. That's what I think you're looking at, something like that.
You see a lot of those this year. Yeah, I mean, I think it's not really a mystery to anybody that you're going to have to stop the run. Tannehill is more of a game manager. He's not like a super dynamic quarterback or anything like that. And as you said, AJ Brown is off the team. They replaced him with Brandon Cooks, who isn't as good. So they did out Austin Hooper, who is one of the better pass-catching tight ends in the league. But their offense doesn't look really any better than it did last year. Their defense doesn't really look any better than it did last year. That being said, they did win 12 games and win the AFC South. It's going to be a hard game. And Nick, I agree with you. I think there's going to be a lot of games for the Giants this year where it comes down to the end. Whether or not they have the grit to complete those victories in the fourth quarter, which they haven't done over the years, that will remain to be seen. A lot of quitting in the fourth quarter for this team, as we've seen plenty of times. So I still don't think the Giants are going to win, but I think it's going to be a better outing than we were expecting to see from a new unit and a new coaching staff and just a new regime in general. You guys what do you think the score is going to be?
Well, I did say that we'd somehow win for no good reason. So I'll throw it at, 24-20.
I was going to say 20-17. Like I could see us being down 17-13 or something like that and having to go score a touchdown to win like that. Like I said, down 4 going into that last drive. And, I could just see us finding a way to win, to your point, Kyle. Like, everybody getting excited, talking about how the ship's changed, and really just kind of like being a new identity, new way we're kind of approaching things. I'm not going to say and then go lose week 2, but I'm just saying I could see that being the storyline as we find a way to win. And, it'll be one of those things where we find a way to win amidst some sort of big injury, right? Somebody gets hurt though. It's always the Giant way, right? Kadarius Toney will have 150 all-purpose yards and he'll break his leg or something like that. But we'll win, and it will be like, that's always the Giants lately. When it feels like there's something that comes out of it as well. Bad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm going to go no injuries. Giants lose 27-17. That's my thought. Anything else tonight, guys?
No, I'm just happy to hang out with my friends.
Yeah, friends. Thanks, guys, for listening tonight. Don't forget to follow Big Blue United on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Follow us on Twitter, BBU Podboys with a Z, the Pigskin Podcast Network at the Pigskin Podnet. Don't forget to download the DraftKings app. Use promo code TPPN and check out Booksio.com. Thank you guys for listening and have a good night.
Good night, Whiskerton.